$128 on this palette from Danessa Myricks. This is her newest Lightworks palette. Did I make a mistake or did I make the best decision? Hey y'all, it's Heather and I'm so excited because today we're going to be creating with the Danessa Myricks Lightwork palette. I ordered this off of the Sephora app. It is available now as an app exclusive and it will be coming to the Sephora site soon, but I saw this palette and I could not wait to get my hands on it. This is the Lightwork palette. This is the Freedom palette, but I did have to point out that it came really well packaged. Like nothing was gonna break with the way Danessa Myricks had this palette inside of this box. We have this really cool black, clear, transparent type acrylic cover on the palette. It just kind of opens up, so it's like really an artist style palette, and we have these gorgeous sparkly shades. This palette is broken up into 6-pan palettes. These are all special, super sparkly shades. No mattes in this palette at all, so you can create all your shimmer looks that you want to do, or you can pull in your matte palette, which is what I'll probably do towards the end of this video because we are going to do swatches, eye swatches, and I'm going to show you a look with this one. We'll do some comparisons. I want my videos to be as helpful to y'all as possible. I want to give you thorough reviews. I want to tell you everything I can because I know there are so many options out there and I want my videos to be helpful when you're deciding what you want to buy, what you want to skip on. And I don't know if you noticed, but this palette is very expensive. This is a $128 palette, but I love Danessa Myricks. I really think she's making amazing high quality products. Although I haven't used it yet, I'm not regretting my purchase. Just looking at it, it's making me so happy. Now, I have to show you one of the really cool features of this palette. If you can tell on the side, there's little grooves. So there are magnets on the back of the palettes and they fit into this magnetic palette. And then the cover of the palette, if you see, this cover, there's a little groove right here. This pops off and you can take these mini palettes with you. There's a mirror in here and you just pop it like that. So if you just want to take these 6 shadows, pop the cover on, you can take it, you're good to go, you're good to travel. You take out the other 6 and you pop them together. You take out the other 6 and you pop them together. And then you have this little compact palette if you prefer something like this rather than the large palette. I thought that was genius, honestly, like so genius. And the color stories of these are really beautiful. So I like that she grouped them together in a way that really, really makes sense. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Danessa Myricks once. I saw her when I was in Las Vegas and I was like, hi, Danessa Myricks, like I love you. Can we take a photo together? It was amazing. She was so sweet, just like she is in her videos. She was like that in real life. So I'm really excited. I'm hoping this palette is amazing. I'm gonna grab an eyeshadow primer. I'm gonna zoom you in and nice and close and we are gonna swatch every single shade on our eyes. I'm going to swatch these on my hand and then we're going to put them on the eyes. So I don't have my primer on yet, but let's start with this shade right here. This one is called Proud, and then we'll go on to this one. This one is called Rise. Proud is supposed to be a warm gold with a peach pink shift. Peach pink. I couldn't even get the words out because I was like, wow. I know you saw swatches like all on my arm, but oh my gosh, that is intense. That is a peach pink shift, but that's also got like a hint of a green to it depending on how I move my hand. This is Rise. This is a yellow gold with a peach pink shift. I don't know why I can't say that, but this one does not shift quite as strong, but that yellow base is really noticeable. I see a little bit of lime too, and I do see that pink, but it's just not as intense as this one. Oh, that's so beautiful. I don't even want to talk about it, but I do want to talk about it, but I want to get it on my eyes. I don't normally like to apply shadow with my fingers, but for the sake of these eye swatches, I want to put a little bit on with my fingers so that you can see. I know a lot of y'all really like to use your fingers for eyeshadow, so I'm going to do that, and then I will go in and kind of buff with a brush, but I'm not going to be using any glitter primer or extra adhesive. I'm not going to spray my brush with any setting spray like I would normally do because I just want this to be like swatches on my eyes. Now this is a light shade over top of a light base. I'm using my blank canvas eyeshadow base to swatch these, and shades like this are gonna pop way more with a darker base underneath. I mean, you saw that in my swatches. I swatched them over a deep base, but it's so beautiful on the eyes, and whatever matte I pair this with is gonna bring out the different types of shifts. But let me grab a brush. I'm gonna buff this in, and then I'll show you this and it's gonna be stunning. I'm gonna buff and blend this shadow in with my brush. I will have all the brushes that I use in the description box for you, and I'll also tag them in YouTube shopping. This is so gorgeous. When it came in, I immediately texted my friend Monique because she loves Danessa Myricks as much as I do. Like, we love Danessa Myricks. And I know she's gonna want this. If she's watching this, she probably already bought it, but I'm buffing and blending this shade in case you want to use this shadow as a one and done. I want you to be able to see how it looks on the lid. So these eye swatches are so you can see the shades, see how they apply. We can talk about them, but also so that you can see if you just want to use one eyeshadow, throw on some mascara or no mascara or whatever, you can see how it looks and blends and applies on the eyes. And this is intensely beautiful. Okay, I had to turn down the light and like use the flashlight on my phone so that you can just see like how pretty that is. Like, it needs to pick up the sparkle. I mean, I don't know like how often you're standing in the dark with like a little bit of light on your face, but like, do you see that? What do I know? Maybe you're having like a candlelit dinner or something. I had to show you, like, I couldn't resist. As much as I just want to stare at this shade all day, I also want to play with this shade. So I'm going to pick that up and we'll apply it over here. Oh, I don't have my eye primer on yet. What am I doing? I am distracted by the sparkle. Now let's swatch that shade Rise. That is so pretty, even just with my finger, but of course I'm grabbing a brush. I'm going to put on a little more of this and just blend. Of course I'm getting some fallout when I use my brush. Normally, like if I'm using this day to day and when we create our look later, I will spray my brush with a little setting spray after I pick up the shadow. I never want to go in with a wet brush into the shadow, but spraying it with setting spray after I pick it up and before I go on to my lid will make sure I'm not getting all of this fallout. It's just the nature of picking up such sparkly shadows with a fluffy brush. You can also change up your brush and use something that's like more dense and flat, and that is beautiful too, and it can give you some beautiful intensity. But I do feel like using a fluffy brush like this really brings out the sparkle in the shadow. So that's why I'm choosing to do that, because I love the sparkle, and there's no glitter in here. When I say sparkle, I mean sparkle, not pressed glitter. And what can I say that this shadow is not saying for itself? Like, it is so beautiful. Once again, here's that sparkle in the dim. Before I take them off, I just want to show you again. I just want to be super helpful. I want y'all to really be able to see how this product performs and how it looks. Next, we'll jump down to this shade right here. I figured we would kind of go in the way Danessa laid them out in their 6 pans. So this is the shade Higher. Higher is supposed to be an electric peach with a flamingo pink shift. So I'll put that right there. Oh, the glide of that shadow. I know it looks so light, but wow, that is really, really beautiful. And like, listen, the rest of my makeup, it's gonna be looking a little messy. I mean, I'm putting shadow on, I'm taking it off, so we're not gonna judge, right? We're not gonna judge how my under eye, my concealer, and all that's looking, right? Let me put this on my eye, the shade Higher. Oh, it's so pretty. Okay, I'm just gonna put that on with my finger right there. That's cute. Now that's light. Let me grab a brush. Okay, I've got some more shadow so I can kind of put this on and blend it. That's cute. It's a light shade, so I think this is going to be beautiful. Again, layered over a matte shade, something deeper. Of course, if you want it to be like light like this, you can definitely do what I'm doing with like your typical eyeshadow base. I typically use something that is lighter than my skin tone so everything can pop a bit. But you'll see it when we turn the light down. But before we do that, I'm going to go into the next shade. This is the shade Gleaming, and it says that this is a green with a brown shift. Once again, I forgot to prime my eyes, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and swatch on my hand. It actually says a beetle green, which I think is a fun description. That's pretty. Okay, so I see the green, I see the brown. It is a green to brown. Like, I definitely see that, but I also see like almost this little bit of like warmth I don't know that I would say a red, but there's something like in between the green and brown that's really, really special. All right, let's put gleaming on right here. There it is with my finger, but now I'm gonna grab my brush. That is so pretty. Like, that is so pretty. Green's my favorite color, so I had a feeling I would love this shade. Like, it was definitely calling to me. Here's that shadow with a little bit of the flashlight. Again, it's not about my blending right now, it's just about the shade of the shadow. Isn't that gorgeous? Seeing the light hit that green shadow, that sparkle. Yeah, that's gorgeous. Oh, I love the orange and green together. So pretty. Next, we'll go into the shade Unapologetic. This is described as a warm suede brown, and that is really pretty. That's very much like just a shimmer shadow. I say just a shimmer shadow. It doesn't have any shift to it, but still incredibly beautiful. You see, like, very smooth. It has a nice shine to it, like really pretty metallic shade. Next we have the shade Nirvana, and this is described as an olive green with a teal shift, but I feel that we're gonna see more shifts than just that, because even just holding the palette dead on, it looks copper, right? But then when I turn it to the side, it looks different. Okay, we'll put that shade Nirvana right here. Do you see the glide? This shade is so beautiful. I really like that. I'm gonna just put that on with my finger right here. I'm gonna just buff this shade and kind of put this all over the lid. This shade is really pretty. It doesn't have shift, but the color is very intense. It's very smooth. It's looking really, really beautiful. I'm not gonna worry about blending it perfectly, but you can see, like, it's buffing and blending how I need it to. And I think this is like a perfect shade for fall. That's really gorgeous. Oh, I've got some creasing in my eye primer, but that's okay because it's not like I'm gonna leave these on. This is the shade Nirvana. This shade is really a lot like my nail color, isn't it? So I put it on with my finger, and now I'm going to buff it in and blend with a brush. Here is that shade Nirvana. You can just see, even like this, the different shades that are being picked up, where that shadow like kind of curves around my eye and kind of up with my deep set eye. That's a really gorgeous color. Okay, here are these swatches with my phone light, and here's that Nirvana shade. Really beautiful, really, really beautiful. My eyes are gonna be so mad at me for putting on shadow, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off, but I hope this is helpful to y'all. Let me know if you like these eye swatches. That was all the swatches from this 6 pan right here. So now we're gonna move over here to this side. This shade is called Release. This is supposed to be a seafoam blue with a lilac shift, and that's definitely like a seafoam color. There's a really, really pretty shift to this one. So we will put this on the eyes, but let me see. I think I can fit one more swatch on this hand. So we'll do the next shade. This shade is called Free. This is supposed to be a light hot pink with a dove gray shift. And maybe we'll just put it right here. That is pigmented and that swatch is smooth. So I know you're mostly seeing like the grayness, but you will, ooh, it's kind of like a gold too. Okay, let me prime my eyes and we'll apply. I'm so distracted by my hand. Like, these swatches are so good. Okay, here's a finger swatch of the shade Release. You can tell in the swatch here that this shadow has more of that like transparent base. So you're not gonna see a ton with this light base underneath, but once we have the lights dimmed, you'll be able to see it a lot more. Now let's apply it with the brush where I can actually like blend and get in all my little wrinkles and crinkles. Very messily applied, but you can see that that's a really pretty shiny shade. Again, just with this base, nothing else. It's going to not be super impactful, but still quite beautiful. You'll see in a minute. This is the shade Free. There it is applied with my finger. You're not gonna be able to see this shade much at all because it's so light. You would if I had some other shadows paired next to it, but just on top of my light eyeshadow primer base, it doesn't stand out a ton. This shade would be really, really pretty paired with like orange shadows or warm browns. Like, it would be so gorgeous. You can see that shade and sparkle and shift a lot more in the dim lighting like this. Here's the side over here. Wow, you can really tell where I've wiped my eye makeup off so many times. But it does not matter as long as you can see that beautiful shine on the shadow. Really pretty. I am really enjoying that this palette has really light shades like this and has some more deep intense, because I feel like these types of light shades can really complement a look. They can be used with colorful shades or with neutrals, like whatever you like. I think they make the palette more versatile. Let's swatch the shade Fluid. Fluid is described as a bright teal with a light gold shift, and that is exactly what I'm seeing. And you can see too how it has that kind of gold reflect to it. Next, we'll do this shade called Euphoria. This is an orchid purple with a plum shift. And I definitely see that. You can see kind of like almost that plum purple to it while still having that almost like pinky, silvery type of tone. Like, I don't know. These just have really pretty reflect in them. I'll put this shade on with my finger. Just kind of patting it on like that. That really is a pretty blue color. Very like tropical, but could also lean very like snow wintry. Now we'll blend it with the brush, which I really prefer using a brush instead of my fingers. So pretty, like such a pretty color. This is the shade Euphoria, and this is such a pretty, intense color. Blending this with the brush is really going to bring out the sparkle a lot more than just our finger. Really, really pretty shades. Of course, I'm not worried about blending, but you can see how these shades are on the eyes. Really intensely pretty. You can see this shine in that shadow in this dim light, and the same with this shade over here. You can see that sparkle, and you can see a little more of the shift and those other reflects. Here's one last look at these two. Really pretty, really like a wintry shadows. Now we'll swatch the shade Unbound. I forgot I'm running out of room over here, but this is a satin shadow. This is described as an indigo blue. I think that's a pretty color. Very pretty. Very much like no shift, no sparkle, just a pretty satin. Next, we'll do this shade right here called Empowered, and I'm gonna remember to put it on the other hand this time. We'll swatch Empowered right here. That is a beautiful, deep, intense purple. Really pretty. Okay, let me throw on my eye primer. Here is the shade Unbound, just applied with my finger. Like that. Can't really get all in the like grooves, so let me grab a brush. Buff this shade in since it's more of that satin formula. Okay, I really let that shade be intense so that you could kind of see how a satin looks on the eye, how it kind of looks on the lid, how it kind of looks buffed around. This shadow is really pretty. This color would also be really pretty like with a neutral brown look, and then just this color on the lower lash line. It would be really, really pretty that way. This is the shade Empowered. A very, very pretty, intense purple. Now I'm just gonna buff this shade in. And you can see that it has like this really dark black base to it, which gives it that intensity, and then it has the purple shimmer quality, which I like a lot. Like, isn't that pretty? Where I kind of like buff and blend, you can see more of that kind of black base to it, but then when I kind of like more press it on, you can see more of the purple like ness on top, the purpleness, you know, the purpleness. These are both really pretty colors. Our little flashlight isn't gonna do a ton because there's not really a ton of sparkle or shift to them. They're more like smooth shadows. But for the sake of consistency, I'm gonna do this like for every shadow in this palette. Okay, we have the last 6 shades. So I'm gonna swatch right here this shade Serenity. This is supposed to be a pink, green, gold, and there it is. Really, really pretty. I can definitely see that pink. And I know y'all saw all the angles of the swatches, but this is a pink green gold for sure. Next is the shade Dance, and this is supposed to be a pink with a silver. So if I put that here, you can see it's that really light pink that does have that silver shift to it. Not really a duochrome so much as like it just has those silvery reflex with a little bit of that pink base. I actually took like a 30-minute break just to let my eyes sit for a second. So I'm gonna grab a primer and we'll put these shadows on. Okay, we'll put the shade Serenity right here. There it is applied with my finger. Since this does have a light base, again, it's not gonna show up the best just like with this light, but in lower light we're gonna be able to see it more. This is another shade that's really, really pretty. Depending on the mattes that you pair it with, those shifts will kind of stand out. Now I'm gonna put on the shade Dance. This is a really pretty option if you want to add in like a little bit of something special, but you don't want to go like full on color. This shade has that like pink silver to it, so it's something a little bit different without being bold. This shade has a lot of shimmer to it, so it's really pretty with that sparkle. Here we have these two light, mostly pinky colors. You could see both of these colors a lot more in the more like dim light. You can see that sparkle there, especially like if I move the light further away, and over here as well. Doesn't that have a pretty shift and shine? I like that. One last look at these two shades. Next we have the shade Joy. This is described as a bright pinky coral with a gold shift. I feel like on my hand it looks very similar to this shade up here, but you can see this is actually more pinky coral, like a little brighter pink, whereas this is more pinky purpley. And in the shift they don't look similar at all, but like this they kind of do. This is the shade Rejoice, and I absolutely love that name. Rejoice is a rose gold to an antique gold shift is how it's described. So in the swatch it definitely looks like that rose gold, but like you saw in the mirror swatch earlier, like you can see the shifts very differently there. Here is the shade Joy with my finger on the eye, on my lid. I'm gonna buff this in with the brush, and I really like the tone of this. I think this would be really pretty as a face highlighter too. And I'm not wearing any face highlight. Like, I know I have fallout, but I'm kind of wearing just like a glowy blush. So maybe for our final look, we can use these on the face too. This is the shade Rejoice. And this shade, I really like this rose gold color. All of these shades have been really easy for me to pick up with the brush and apply. I do notice that this shade is a little more squishy than some of the others, but it's not as squishy as some shadows I've had from different indie brands. So if you don't like shadows like that, almost like a Super Shock type formula where you kind of press and you can feel, just make note that that shade is that way, kind of like Super Shock-esque, and so is this shade right up here. Also this shade a little bit, but the rest have not been as like bouncy as that. Here's the shades in the lower light, and this shade as well. Very pretty. Now we have both of those shades in the kind of lower light. Next we have the shades Love and Bliss. These are two more like silky satin type shades. You can see like a very, very smooth, very like easy to glide, beautiful, beautiful pigment, and very like soft shades, not super intense. My battery is trying to die, so I want to quickly swatch these last two shades. There is an eye swatch of the shade Love. Here is Bliss. Neither of these shades are super sparkly or intense. They're more that like pretty satiny velvet type formula. And I would say this one is not overly pigmented. It's a very soft shade, but there is pigment there. This is a kind of versatile formula right here. Like if you wanted to use this as a matte shadow, you definitely could. Bliss also has a more like squishy type formula, It's not wet like a putty, but it does have a little of that texture. Here are both of these shades. You can see they're definitely different from like a lot of the other shades in the palette, and that they don't have a lot of sparkle. Here are those shades in the flashlight, and then here they are again. All right, did you like the eye swatches? Let me know. I'm gonna quickly give you some comparisons. I'm just gonna show you some other palettes. I don't have any of the other Lightworks palettes to show you, but I do have the Isamaya Industrial Color Pigments Palette 2.0. This is a really beautiful all shimmer palette. I do have a video on this one, definitely not dupes, but I'm hoping that by showing you this palette side by side with some others, it will help you if you're trying to make a decision on whether or not to purchase this palette. I also am showing it next to the Clionadh Dragon Fruit palette. Clionadh is an independently owned brand and makes really beautiful shadows. Then we have the Adept Cosmetics Seahorse palette. Adept and Clionadh both do a lot of shimmery shadows. So if you're looking for just shimmers, maybe you want some mattes thrown in too, definitely check out Adept Cosmetics. Last but not least, I have this palette next to the BellaBeauteBar Angles of Illumination palette. This palette is so gorgeous, and I think it has a lot of beautiful shades in here, especially if you're looking for some light and dark and colorful shades. Jumping into the looks with this palette, I am going to start with some matte shades. I'm going to be using the Danessa Myricks Groundwork Blooming Romance palette. I really enjoy this palette. I do have several looks using this palette here on my channel, and I love pulling in shimmer special shades with this one. I am always priming my eyes no matter what. I have deep set eyes, I have oily lids. I always use an eye primer. I didn't want to spend too much time on this since the video is more about the Lightworks palette, but I did want to show you me applying the more matte shadows. Once I have those shadows down, we're going to go back into our Lightworks palette, and I'm going to start with this gorgeous shade. I am going to spray my brush after I pick up the shadow. I want to put this all in the center of my lid. This is such a beautiful shade. Next, I want to use this shade, so beautiful. Again, I'm going to spray every shade before I put it on my eyes. This shade has a very similar tone to the first shade we used, but it's a little bit stronger in that fiery orange. Next, I want to go in with this shade on a really small brush, and I'm going to run this on my lower lash line for some extra specialness there. Last but not least, I'm going to grab this shade and put it in my inner corner for a pop. I am loving all the sparkle I have going on. I do want to use this shade from this palette as a face highlight just to see how that looks, because I do feel like this is a very versatile palette and I love it. This is my finished complete look, just with mascara, liner, and then of course the eyes and the cheeks. So beautiful and sparkly. Let me give you my thoughts on this palette. Now that I've eye swatched everything, I've arm swatched everything, and I have a look. I love my look, by the way. I really do. I think it's so fun and I'm here for it. I love a good sparkle shadow, and I love the packaging of this palette. I love this kind of like clear acrylic blackened type packaging. I love that you can just take a third of the palette with you if you want to. They're magnetic. You can pop this lid on. I just think that's really, really smart and really functional. So for the price of the palette, I do like this packaging. I can see where money went into this packaging, and I appreciate that. If I'm paying a high price, I want to get like the bang for my buck, you know? I want to get what I'm paying for, and I see that. I do think there are a lot of really beautiful special shades in here. I think the formulas are gorgeous. I really enjoy them. I am just using this palette for the first time today, and I am going to continue to wear it. I've never bought a Lightworks palette from Danessa Myricks before, so right now I'm really, really happy with my purchase. I think this look is beautiful. I do feel like this palette is very unique in terms of palettes that you can buy at Sephora. We don't see a lot of brands at Sephora do things like this. I mean, I can think of Danessa Myricks. I can think of Pat McGrath does beautiful sparkly shades. She doesn't have any palettes like this with this many sparkly shades. I can think of Natasha Denona. She includes some beautiful sparkly shades in her palette. Again, nothing just all sparkly shifty like this. So I do feel like this is very unique in terms of what you can buy at Sephora. If you are someone like me who has a lot of eyeshadow palettes, you have a lot of indie brand shadows, brands like Clionadh, Adept, BellaBeauteBar, Unearthly, you may not find this palette to be super duper unique. There are several shades in here that, while I don't think are dupes, like not exactly the same in terms of formula, I do think I could probably get the same types of shadows. If I were to pull a ton of palettes from my collection, I would probably have some things like this. I also have a large collection of single shadows. I'm thinking like Ensley Rain. And if you're someone like that, like me, who has that, this probably isn't gonna be like a super unique must-have in your collection. But I am a makeup lover. I love having tons of sparkly shadows. I love having formulas from different brands, and I do not regret my purchase of this palette one single bit. I'm happy that I spent my $128 at Danessa Myricks on the Sephora site. I do hope this video was super helpful to you. I absolutely love makeup, and I want to share all of my makeup experience with y'all to help you make the best decision possible. Let me know if you are interested in this palette. Are you planning to pick it up? Is it on your wish list? Are you gonna shop your stash? I would love to hear from you. I have so many other makeup videos here on my channel. I just love makeup. I could play in it all day. I could talk about it all day. So I will pop up some more videos if you want to hang out, but let me know what you think of this palette down in the comments.